Example 5, differentiate y is equal to 1 over the tangent inverse of x and f of x, which is equal to x times the arctangent of the square root of x. And recall that arctangent is an alternative notation for tangent inverse of x. So for part A, okay, we have y, which is equal to 1 over the tangent inverse of x. Okay, now we can rewrite this to be y, which is equal to 1 over of x. And now we can rewrite this as the arctangent of x to the negative 1. Okay, now if we want to take the derivative of this function, that means we're going to take negative 1 on the outside, and then we're going to multiply it by the arctangent of x, and it's negative 1 minus 1, which becomes negative 2, times the derivative of the arctangent. And we know the derivative of the arctangent is 1 over x squared plus 1. So what does that tell us? Well, let's just reorganize this. So we have y prime, which is equal to what's left in the numerator. Well, this is going to be negative 1 over the arctangent of x to the second power times 1 over x squared plus 1. And so therefore our result is the following. Y prime is going to equal, that's negative 1 times 1, so it's 1 in the numerator. In the denominator we have arctangent of x squared times x squared plus 1. And therefore there is our result. That represents part A. Now let's take a look at part B. Part B, it says find a derivative of f of x, which is equal to x times the arctangent of the square root of x. Okay, so we have f of x, which is equal to x times the arctangent of the square root of x. Okay, so if we want to find the derivative of this function, it's going to equal, we're going to be using the product rule, so we have the derivative of x, which is 1, times the arctangent of the square root of x, plus we're going to take x and then multiply it by the derivative of the arctangent of x. Well, remember that the arctangent of x is the following, okay? It's going to be 1 over x squared plus 1. But I want you to keep in mind and notice here that this square root of x represents this x here. So therefore, we're going to replace that x with the square root of x and then square it. So therefore, this is the square root of x squared plus 1. Now, we also need to multiply that by the derivative of the square root of x. And remember that the derivative of the square root of x is 1/2 times x to the negative 1/2. Okay? So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit here. So now we have the derivative So this is arctangent of the square root of x plus, well, this becomes x times 1, which is x over, well, this becomes the square root of x squared, which is x plus 1, times, well, remember that this is 1 over 2 times the square root of x. So therefore, this becomes f prime of x, which is equal to the arctangent of the square root of x plus x over 2 times the square root of x times x plus 1. Okay, so now in that second term, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to rationalize the denominator. And so in order to rationalize the denominator, we need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of x. And so by doing so, then in step 5, we get the arctangent of the square root of x plus x times the square root of x over 2 times the square root of x times the square root of x is going to give us x times x plus 1, which then allows us to simplify the x's. And therefore, we have the arctangent of the square root of x plus the square root of x over 2 times x plus 1.